In a world that demands constant adaptation and relentless control over external chaos, the greatest power lies not in changing others, but in mastering oneself. Imagine embodying a presence so firm, so unyielding, that no external force can shake your inner calm. This is the essence of Medusa, not as a monster, but as an archetype of emotional sovereignty. Her gaze doesn't petrify others because of cruelty, but because of an unwavering boundary she holds, a command over her own response to the world's turbulence. Women today face unprecedented pressure, from social expectations to internalized anxieties that challenge their emotional equilibrium daily. Yet much of the suffering stems not from the world's realities, but from attempts to control what lies beyond reach. Medusa teaches a different path. Control your response, not the world. This shift is subtle but transformative. It liberates women from the exhausting cycle of external validation and redirects power inward. The Stoics, from Marcus Aurelius to Epictetus, articulated this ancient wisdom with precision. It's not what happens to you, but how you react that matters. Medusa embodies this Stoic ideal, standing firm, fierce, and self-possessed amidst chaos. Her myth is reclaimed here as a symbol of radical self-mastery, where emotional reactions are not suppressed, but understood, regulated, and directed consciously. This journey is not about stoic detachment that alienates, but about grounded strength that welcomes solitude, sets firm boundaries, and nurtures authenticity. It is a call for women to embrace their Medusa gaze, calm yet commanding, vulnerable yet invincible, to learn how to pause, reflect, and respond with intention rather than reflexive emotion. In this exploration, you will discover practical psychological tools and stoic reflections tailored for modern women to withstand anxiety, social pressure, and emotional storms. This is your invitation to be like Medusa, to control your response and reclaim your power. The world may rage around you, but your gaze can remain steady, your spirit unbreakable. Welcome to this empowering journey into emotional self-mastery through the archetype of Medusa, a symbol reclaimed for modern women seeking strength amid life's challenges. In today's fast-paced world, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by anxiety, societal pressures, and the torrent of emotions that threaten to consume us. Yet, as this teaching will show, the greatest power lies not in trying to control external events, but in mastering your response to them. Drawing from Stoic philosophy and contemporary psychology, this series offers deep reflections and practical tools to help you develop emotional sovereignty. You will learn how to set clear boundaries, embrace solitude as a source of strength, and cultivate radical authenticity, qualities embodied by Medusa, not as a monster, but as a figure of fierce self-possession. If you're ready to break free from the exhausting need to control the uncontrollable and instead cultivate a calm, resolute inner world, this journey is for you. Each chapter delves into a specific aspect of this transformation, guiding you to understand and embody the Medusa archetype in daily life. Please subscribe to this series for regular insights and reflections. Like this content if it resonates with your experience, and don't forget to comment below sharing where you're watching from, your city and country. This community is about connecting women globally in pursuit of inner strength and clarity. Prepare to be inspired, challenged, and supported as you take control of your response, not the world. Be like Medusa, and let your gaze transform how you engage with life's storms. Emotional sovereignty is the cornerstone of true freedom. It means cultivating the ability to govern your inner world independently of external forces. In a society where women often face contradictory demands, being nurturing yet strong, agreeable yet assertive, emotional sovereignty offers a refuge of clarity and control. Medusa, traditionally misunderstood, symbolizes this sovereignty, Her myth, reframed through psychology and stoicism, presents her gaze as a metaphor for a woman who commands her emotional landscape with authority, refusing to be shaken by external chaos. The psychology behind emotional sovereignty involves recognizing emotions as internal phenomena rather than reactions dictated by others or circumstances. This echoes Stoic philosophy, which distinguishes between what is in our control, our thoughts and responses, and what is not, other people's opinions, external events. Women often internalize social pressure, making their emotional state dependent on others' approval or rejection. Medusa's archetype challenges this dependence, embodying an unyielding center that neither seeks validation nor crumbles under criticism. Anxiety and social pressure manifest as attempts to control an uncontrollable world. They arise from blurred boundaries where external stimuli invade the personal emotional sphere. To be like Medusa is to re-establish those boundaries firmly, to recognize that your emotional response is yours alone to govern. This doesn't mean suppressing feelings. Rather, it means observing them with awareness, then choosing how to respond. Emotional sovereignty is the active engagement with one's emotions, not their passive victim. Neuroscience supports this concept by showing how the prefrontal cortex, the brain's executive center, can regulate the amygdala, the seat of emotional reactivity. With practice, women can strengthen this regulatory pathway through mindfulness, reflection, and cognitive techniques. This biological capacity aligns perfectly with Stoic exercises that train attention and rational judgment, providing a scientific foundation for Medusa's metaphorical gaze, a controlled, focused presence that neutralizes emotional turbulence. Practically, emotional sovereignty begins with self-awareness. Women facing anxiety or overwhelming emotions should cultivate moments of pause where they can name and examine their feelings without judgment. This deliberate pause creates space for choice rather than automatic reaction. The Medusa gaze is precisely this, a moment of stillness that holds firm, a refusal to be drawn into reactive chaos. This practice may start small but grows powerful over time, fostering resilience and clarity. Another key aspect is the acceptance of emotional reality without being defined by it. Stoicism teaches the distinction between impressions and judgments. Emotions are natural impressions, but how we judge them determines our peace. Medusa's archetype embodies this wisdom. She acknowledges her feelings, but does not let them dictate her identity or actions. Women can adopt this mindset to reduce emotional suffering, understanding that emotions are signals, not commands. Social expectations often pressure women to be emotionally available, agreeable, or nurturing, which can conflict with maintaining sovereignty. Medusa's myth, reinterpreted, stands as a rebellion against such pressures. Her gaze protects her boundaries and asserts her autonomy. Women can learn from this example by setting limits around their time, energy, and emotional labor, recognizing that saying no is not selfish, but an act of self-respect and preservation. Emotional sovereignty also involves cultivating an internal narrative that reinforces strength and self-trust. Women frequently internalize messages of doubt or inadequacy, which undermine their capacity to respond with calm and reason. Medusa's story invites women to rewrite their narratives, to see themselves as powerful, self-governing beings whose worth is intrinsic, not contingent on external validation. The power of solitude is critical here. Medusa's exile, often portrayed negatively, can be reframed as a deliberate choice of solitude to protect emotional integrity. Women benefit from creating mental and physical space away from constant social demands, enabling reflection and recharge. Solitude strengthens emotional sovereignty by allowing uninterrupted connection with one's true self, free from distraction or external influence. Ultimately, to be like Medusa in emotional sovereignty is to embody a presence that commands respect, not through aggression or intimidation, but through unshakable calm, firm boundaries, and conscious response. It is a practice that requires daily commitment, patience, and compassion toward oneself. But the reward is immense, the freedom to engage with life's challenges from a place of strength rather than fear or reactivity. The gaze is more than a physical act. It is a symbol of focus, intention, and presence. Medusa's myth illustrates the power embedded in the gaze, how it can command, protect, and transform. For women seeking emotional mastery, learning to master your gaze means training your attention and mental focus to direct your internal and external reality. The gaze becomes a metaphor for conscious awareness. Where you place your attention shapes how you experience and respond to the world. Psychological research confirms that attention governs emotional experience. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, and mindfulness-based practices emphasize that by shifting focus away from distressing stimuli and toward neutral or positive aspects, one can regulate emotions effectively. Medusa's unblinking gaze embodies this principle. She does not waver or get distracted by chaos, but holds steady, reflecting the power of mental discipline to shape emotional outcomes. This mastery of gaze connects deeply with Stoic teachings. Marcus Aurelius advised, "Look well into thyself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if thou wilt always look there." The looking is an inward focus on reason, virtue, and what lies within control. For women battling anxiety and emotional overwhelm, this inward gaze anchors them, enabling detachment from external disturbances while maintaining engagement with life's realities. In practice, mastering your gaze requires deliberate exercises of attention control. Begin with simple daily practices like focused breathing or mindfulness meditation to develop sustained attention. When intrusive thoughts or emotions arise, acknowledge them without judgment, then gently return your focus to a chosen anchor, your breath, a mantra, or a visual object. Over time, this builds mental resilience and reduces impulsive emotional reactions. The metaphor extends beyond inward focus to the way women engage socially and set boundaries. Medusa's gaze is fierce yet deliberate. It is not reactive, but intentional. Women can learn to hold their gaze in interpersonal encounters, meeting challenges or hostility with calm, firm attention rather than fear or avoidance. This poised presence communicates strength and discourages manipulation or emotional intrusion. Anxiety often arises from a scattered, distracted mind, overwhelmed by what-ifs and uncontrollable outcomes. Medusa's archetype teaches the power of a single, steady gaze to cut through this noise. By anchoring attention on what is present and within control, women can dismantle the cycle of anxious rumination. This is a practical form of cognitive control that fosters clarity and reduces emotional distress. This mastery also requires cultivating meta-awareness, the ability to observe one's thoughts and feelings as passing phenomena rather than facts. Medusa's gaze, in psychological terms, symbolizes this meta-awareness, observing without being ensnared. Techniques like journaling, cognitive restructuring, or therapy can develop this skill, helping women distance themselves from destructive self-talk and emotional reactivity. It's important to recognize that mastering your gaze does not mean rigid control or suppression of emotions. Rather, it means flexible, deliberate engagement. The gaze can soften or harden as needed. Like Medusa's protective stare, it can open in empathy or close in defense. Women empowered by this awareness know when to let feelings flow and when to hold firm, maintaining balance amid emotional complexity. Social conditioning often teaches women to avoid direct confrontation or assertiveness, fearing judgment or rejection. Medusa's myth counters this by celebrating directness and boundary setting through her gaze. Women can reclaim this assertive presence, using their gaze as a tool of communication and self-advocacy, making clear what they will or will not tolerate without aggression. Ultimately, mastering your gaze is mastering your mind. It is the disciplined practice of focusing attention with intention and awareness to shape emotional experience and behavior. This mental mastery leads to emotional sovereignty, equipping women to navigate life's challenges with calm strength and authentic presence. To be like Medusa is to wield this power daily, transforming not only how you see the world, but how the world sees you. Boundaries are the invisible lines that define where you end and others begin. For women, setting boundaries is often complicated by cultural expectations to be accommodating, nurturing, and self-sacrificing. Yet, emotional sovereignty demands clear boundaries, a firm, uncompromising line drawn to protect your mental and emotional well-being. Medusa's myth teaches us this lesson with unmistakable clarity. Her gaze is a boundary, a protective shield that warns others not to trespass. Philosophically, Stoicism emphasizes the importance of focusing on what is within your control and accepting what is not. Boundaries are a practical application of this principle. They mark what you control, your time, energy, and emotional investment, and communicate it firmly to others. Women who set boundaries with stoic resolve do so without apology, recognizing that their peace depends on respecting their own limits before accommodating others. Psychologically, boundary setting is linked to self-esteem and emotional health. Women who struggle to enforce boundaries often experience burnout, resentment, and anxiety because they absorb others' demands at the expense of their own needs. Medusa's archetype offers a model of self-protection without aggression. Her gaze stops intrusion before harm is done. Learning to say no, clearly and calmly, is an act of empowerment that fosters respect from self and others alike. Practicing boundaries requires clarity about your values and priorities. Take time to reflect on what is non-negotiable in your emotional and physical space. This clarity fuels stoic resolve, the unwavering commitment to honor your boundaries regardless of external pressure. Medusa's myth exemplifies this unwavering stance. Her exile and isolation represent the consequences and necessity of guarding her limits, a choice made from strength, not weakness. Setting boundaries is not only about defense, but also about defining your authentic self. When women allow others to overstep their limits, they risk losing touch with their true desires and needs. Medusa's transformation from victim to guardian symbolizes reclaiming this authenticity. Stoicism teaches that self-mastery is inseparable from authenticity. You must live in accordance with your nature, which requires honest boundary setting. In practice, boundary setting involves clear communication. Women can adopt assertive yet respectful language to express their limits. Phrases like, "I am unable to," "I need time to," or "that is not acceptable to me," articulate boundaries without aggression. Medusa's gaze metaphorically reflects this clarity. It is unmistakable and firm. This approach reduces ambiguity and prevents manipulation or emotional exploitation. Resistance and pushback are common when boundaries are first established. Friends, family, or colleagues may test or challenge your limits. Stoicism prepares women to face such resistance with equanimity, understanding that others' reactions are outside your control and do not diminish your right to self-protection. Medusa's myth reminds us that standing firm can come with isolation, but is necessary for preserving integrity. Emotional self-regulation supports boundary maintenance. Women who manage their emotional reactions effectively are less likely to capitulate under guilt or pressure. Medusa's stoic gaze symbolizes this control, a calm that disarms emotional manipulation and affirms sovereignty. Regular reflection on boundaries and their importance strengthens resolve and reduces the temptation to overextend. Boundaries also foster healthier relationships. When women communicate limits clearly, interactions become more respectful and balanced. Medusa's archetype, once seen as monstrous, can be reframed as a guardian of relational health. Her gaze protects both herself and others by preventing harmful entanglements. This mutual respect creates space for authentic connection rather than codependency. Ultimately, to be like Medusa in boundary setting is to embody stoic resolve, firm, clear, and unyielding in protecting your emotional and mental space. It is a radical act of self-care and authenticity that frees you from external control and cultivates inner peace. This chapter invites you to practice this power daily, reflect on your limits, communicate them courageously, and stand firm with the calm strength of Medusa's gaze. Solitude is often misunderstood, especially for women who live in cultures that emphasize social connection and relational roles. Yet solitude is not loneliness nor a punishment. It is a profound source of strength and self-knowledge. Medusa's exile, traditionally viewed as isolation, can be reinterpreted as a deliberate embrace of solitude, a protective and empowering choice to cultivate inner resilience and clarity away from external noise. From a psychological perspective, solitude allows for emotional regulation and mental restoration. Research shows that time alone supports reflection, reduces overstimulation, and fosters creativity. For women battling anxiety or emotional overwhelm, solitude provides the necessary space to process feelings without external interference or judgment, facilitating recovery and insight. Stoicism affirms solitude as a means to cultivate inner fortitude. Marcus Aurelius often retreated inward, reflecting on his principles away from the distractions of power and politics. This inner solitude helped him maintain calm and reason in the face of external chaos. Medusa's solitary state mirrors this stoic ideal, not as exile, but as a sanctuary where one strengthens the mind and spirit through reflection and self-discipline. Embracing solitude requires shifting mindset away from social fears and towards self-possession. Women often feel pressure to be constantly available or to derive identity from relationships. Medusa's myth invites a radical reorientation, seeing solitude not as emptiness but as fullness, a vital condition for emotional sovereignty and authenticity. Practically, women can cultivate solitude through daily rituals, setting aside time to be alone with their thoughts, journaling, mindful walking, or silent meditation. These practices deepen self-awareness and emotional balance, mirroring the Stoic exercise of journaling to examine impressions and responses objectively. Solitude also builds resilience by fostering independence from external validation. Medusa's story demonstrates that true strength arises when you no longer depend on others' acceptance or approval. Women who embrace solitude learn to stand firmly in their values and judgments, cultivating an unshakable sense of self that neither praises nor condemns need external confirmation. Importantly, solitude does not mean withdrawal from community or relationships, but a balanced relationship with oneself that precedes and supports authentic connection. Women who master solitude bring greater presence, calm, and clarity to their interactions, just as Medusa's steady gaze commands respect without hostility. Facing solitude can evoke discomfort, fear of loneliness, doubts about self-worth, or anxiety about being alone. Stoicism teaches that such feelings are natural impressions, not facts. Medusa's gaze symbolizes the courage to face discomfort without avoidance, welcoming solitude as a teacher rather than a threat. This courage is a daily practice. Women can gradually increase time spent in solitude, learning to tolerate and appreciate the silence and stillness. Over time, solitude becomes a source of energy rather than depletion, strengthening emotional sovereignty and reducing dependence on external chaos for stimulation. Ultimately, to be like Medusa in embracing solitude is to recognize it as a powerful tool for self-mastery and emotional clarity. It is a choice to protect and nurture your inner world, enabling you to engage with life's challenges from a place of grounded strength and authenticity. This chapter invites you to explore solitude not as exile, but as your fortress of calm and resilience. Anxiety, often described as a relentless inner storm, can paralyze and overwhelm, especially for women navigating complex social and personal pressures. Yet anxiety also signals awareness, a readiness for change or action. Medusa's archetype teaches how to channel that restless energy, transforming anxiety from a chaotic force into focused, intentional action rooted in self-control and clarity. Psychologically, anxiety arises when perceived threats overwhelm coping mechanisms, leading to heightened arousal and cognitive distortion. Women frequently face additional layers of anxiety linked to societal expectations, performance pressures, and internalized doubts. Recognizing anxiety as a signal rather than a verdict is the first step in regaining control. Medusa's steady gaze reflects this recognition, a calm that acknowledges threat without surrendering to panic. Stoicism offers practical tools to reframe anxiety. Epictetus advised distinguishing between what is within our power and what is not. Anxiety typically fixates on uncontrollable outcomes or imagined futures. By focusing on present actions and intentions, the aspects truly within one's control, women can redirect anxious energy into constructive effort rather than helpless worry. The transformation from anxiety to action requires grounding practices that anchor attention in the present moment. Mindfulness, deep breathing, and progressive muscle relaxation help regulate the nervous system, reducing the physiological arousal that fuels anxiety. Medusa's myth symbolizes this grounded presence, where calm control neutralizes threat, allowing deliberate response rather than reactive panic. Cognitive restructuring is another key strategy. Women can learn to identify distorted or catastrophic thoughts fueling anxiety and replace them with reasoned, balanced perspectives. This practice echoes Stoic rationality and Medusa's archetype, observing thoughts without judgment and choosing responses based on clarity rather than fear. Setting manageable goals and breaking down overwhelming tasks into actionable steps also help convert anxiety into focused momentum. This approach prevents paralysis by complexity and restores a sense of agency. Medusa's gaze inspires this methodical progress, a firm, unwavering focus that channels energy purposefully. Social support plays a vital role, but Medusa's lesson emphasizes self-reliance over dependency. Women are encouraged to build internal resources, emotional regulation skills, problem-solving abilities, and self-trust, so that anxiety becomes a catalyst for growth rather than a source of immobilization. Practicing acceptance is essential. Anxiety often involves resistance to discomfort. Medusa's gaze embodies acceptance without resignation, a stoic acknowledgement of reality paired with determination to act effectively within it. Women learn to hold anxiety gently, neither fighting nor surrendering, but using it as information to guide their next steps. This transformative process requires patience and daily commitment. Like Medusa's steady watch, women cultivate ongoing awareness and discipline to catch anxious spirals early and redirect them. Over time, this practice builds resilience, turning anxiety from an enemy into an ally in personal empowerment. Ultimately, to be like Medusa in transforming anxiety into focused action is to reclaim your power through mindful presence, rational thought, and purposeful effort. It is the ability to face internal storms without losing command of your response, creating a life where anxiety informs but does not control. This chapter invites you to embrace anxiety as a dynamic force you can master rather than a threat you must endure. Acceptance is one of the most challenging yet liberating practices for emotional sovereignty. Women often face societal and internal pressures to fix every problem, change every circumstance, or control every relationship. Yet, Medusa's archetype teaches a crucial truth echoed by Stoicism. Peace comes not from controlling the world, but from accepting what lies beyond your power and mastering your own response. Psychologically, resistance to uncontrollable events fuels suffering. The human tendency to fight reality, to deny or resent it, magnifies stress, anxiety, and frustration. Women juggling numerous roles and expectations frequently encounter this resistance as they face both personal and systemic challenges. Acceptance here is not passive resignation, but an active recognition of limits that preserves energy for what can be changed. Stoicism centers on this distinction between what is in our control, our judgments, choices, and actions, and what is not, external events, other people's opinions, and outcomes. Epictetus famously taught, "Make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens." Medusa's myth embodies this Stoic wisdom. Her gaze symbolizes a firm boundary between self and world, a refusal to waste power on the uncontrollable. Practically, accepting what you cannot control begins with awareness. Women can practice mindfulness to observe when their thoughts and emotions resist reality. Rather than pushing away discomfort or trying to fix feelings, acceptance invites sitting with them, acknowledging their presence without judgment. This practice reduces emotional reactivity and fosters clarity. Reframing also plays a role. Women can shift perspective from victimhood to agency by focusing on how they respond rather than on external circumstances. This shift empowers them to reclaim control where it truly exists. Medusa's story, often told as one of victimization, can be reinterpreted as an assertion of sovereignty, accepting exile but commanding her own spirit. Acceptance supports setting realistic goals and boundaries. Women who accept limits are less likely to overcommit or exhaust themselves chasing impossible ideals. This stoic balance between effort and surrender promotes sustainable well-being and guards against burnout. Socially, acceptance can improve relationships by reducing conflict over uncontrollable behaviors in others. Women who practice acceptance cultivate empathy and patience, recognizing that while they cannot control others, they can control how they engage with calm, respect, and clear boundaries. Emotional acceptance is intertwined with self-compassion. Medusa's gaze can be seen as fierce, but also self-protective and wise. Women learn to accept their own flaws, mistakes, and vulnerabilities without harsh self-judgment, strengthening resilience and fostering growth. Challenges to acceptance inevitably arise. Hopes unmet, losses suffered, injustices faced. Medusa's stoic gaze inspires women to meet these challenges with dignity and strength, maintaining composure without numbing or avoidance. Acceptance is a practice of courageous presence, facing life fully without illusion. Ultimately, to be like Medusa in accepting what you cannot control is to embody a profound freedom. It is the liberation that arises when you stop fighting the inevitable and instead focus your power on your own mind and actions. This chapter invites you to cultivate acceptance as a daily discipline, transforming surrender into strength and resistance into peace. Social pressure is a pervasive force in the lives of women, shaping behaviors, emotions, and self-perceptions. From expectations around appearance to roles in family and career, these external demands often create internal conflict and emotional strain. Medusa's archetype, reimagined as a symbol of emotional sovereignty, offers a powerful blueprint for resilience, standing firm with clear boundaries and unwavering self-respect amidst societal storms. Psychologically, resilience involves the capacity to recover from stress and adapt to adversity. Women facing social pressure often experience anxiety, self-doubt, or burnout when they try to conform to unrealistic or conflicting demands. Resilience counters these effects by fostering emotional regulation, cognitive flexibility, and a robust sense of self that resists external invalidation. Stoic philosophy provides essential tools for cultivating resilience. The Stoics taught that we must distinguish between what is within our control, our judgments and actions, and what is not, the opinions and behaviors of others. Medusa's gaze symbolizes this boundary, a mental armor that protects against the corrosive effects of social judgment and gossip. Building resilience begins with cultivating self-awareness. Women can observe how social pressures influence their thoughts and feelings without automatically accepting these influences as truths. This conscious distance empowers them to choose responses aligned with their values rather than societal expectations. Setting firm boundaries is central to resilience. Women who articulate and enforce limits on their time, energy, and emotional labor protect themselves from exploitation and overwhelm. Medusa's myth, often misread as punishment, can be reframed as an act of defense. Her gaze wards off intrusion, preserving her sovereignty. Cognitive reframing supports resilience by helping women reinterpret social pressures. Instead of internalizing criticism or feeling the need to conform, they can view pressure as external noise that does not define their worth. This perspective aligns with Stoic indifference to externals and cultivates emotional freedom. Supportive social networks further enhance resilience. While Medusa's solitude is empowering, women also benefit from relationships that respect their boundaries and encourage authenticity. Connecting with like-minded individuals provides validation and strength, buffering against isolating pressures. Resilience involves proactive self-care, physical, emotional, and mental practices that replenish resources depleted by social demands. Regular rest, mindful awareness, and engaging in meaningful activities reinforce the foundation upon which resilience stands. Practicing resilience is a continuous process. Like Medusa's steady gaze, it requires ongoing vigilance and adjustment. Women learn to recognize early signs of overwhelm or compromise and take corrective action to maintain their integrity and emotional health. Ultimately, to be like Medusa in building resilience amid social pressure is to embody a steadfast presence that neither capitulates nor retreats. It is a disciplined balance of firm boundaries, rational perspective, and self-compassion that enables women to navigate societal expectations with grace and power. This chapter invites you to cultivate resilience as a daily practice, holding your gaze steady in the face of the world's demands. My opinion is that embodying the archetype of Medusa offers a profound path for women seeking emotional sovereignty in a complex world. Her gaze, once feared and misunderstood, serves as a metaphor for the strength, clarity, and resilience that come from mastering one's response rather than attempting to control external circumstances. This journey demands courage and discipline, but it also promises freedom from anxiety, from social pressure, and from the exhausting need to please others at the cost of self. To be like Medusa is to accept solitude as a sanctuary, to set boundaries with stoic resolve, and to transform internal storms into focused, intentional action. It is a call to radical authenticity, embracing vulnerability and strength simultaneously, and standing firm with unshakable calm amid life's chaos. Women who cultivate this inner mastery reclaim their power and create a life guided by reason, reflection, and self-respect. As you move forward on this path, remember that emotional sovereignty is not a destination, but a daily practice. A commitment to observe your feelings without being ruled by them, to hold your gaze steady in the face of adversity, and to honor your limits with compassion. Be like Medusa. Control your response, not the world. In this practice lies your true strength.